This is me, Elliot. I'm a writer and content creator. As a creative, there's no better way to get inspired and find new experiences than traveling. And there are also few places in the world where you can eat great food, get cheap massages, and even get a nice tan like you would in Thailand. I made this video to just share my experience there and hopefully to inspire you to find time in between projects to go see the world. If you are interested in seeing my thoughts on writing while traveling, I have a video for you in the cards right up there. Before we start, I want to thank our travel companions Michelle and Tarek for being such good sports and guides and allowing me to film this trip. Anyways, let's get started. Our journey began at YVR Airport in Vancouver, which, as I visit more and more airports, I begin to appreciate the one I have at home the most. It's small, but not too small, comfortable, rarely crowded, and mostly clean. After a 14-hour flight out of Vancouver, we arrived in Hong Kong for a 4-hour layover. Then, we finally arrived in Bangkok at Suvarnabhumi. I think I'm pronouncing it right, I'm not sure. Suvarnabhumi Airport. Literally one of the busiest airports I've ever been to. Anyways, we got out of the airport as quickly as possible. Tarek and Michelle booked a ride beforehand, so we were able to avoid dealing with taxis and head straight to our hotel. We were exhausted. Funny thing about this hotel though, the lobby was located on the 12th floor while our room was located on the 8th. So every time we entered the hotel, we rode up to the 12th floor and had to switch elevators and then go down to the 8th floor. To me that's weird, but I don't know. The plan for the first day in Bangkok was that we go check out some temples. As soon as we walk out of our hotel, we were greeted by this man who claims to be a tuk-tuk driver on holidays, so he was eager to help us. He convinced us to take a tuk-tuk ride from one of his friends who was going to take us to the pier to catch a ferry to the temple. This is my second time in Southeast Asia and in Bangkok. I was there 8 years ago and I made some videos too. If you want to check that out, I have the link in the cards and in the description below. Even though I've been to Southeast Asia and many other major cities where there's a lot of scams, you kind of forget that they happen to tourists, being that I'm from Vancouver and I'm coddled. This was the first scam of our trip, literally 10 seconds after leaving the hotel. I don't remember what the ferry person was asking for, but it was at least 5 times more than the public ferry to get us to the temple. And it wasn't even that far of a walk either, so we got out of there and decided to walk. So we got to the temple and we saw the big Buddha, and I don't have too much to say about that. I'm Buddhist. I've seen temples. And if you've seen one, you've seen them all. So after the temple, how do you clean your palate? By going to the mall, of course. Bangkok has the MBK. Every level has a theme, and in the food court, that is where we had one of the best meals of the trip. However, getting a taxi to and from the mall was tough though, because we wanted the taxi driver to use the meter as to not rip us off, and it is most certainly a rip-off. If they use the meter, I think they get around like 2 to 3 times less than they would if they just negotiate with us. Either way, I guess it's a supply and demand world. Also, when you're ready to leave the mall, you could rather take the transit out, or you could go down to the taxi terminal and get a number and wait in line for a taxi to come and pick you up. Don't do that. That is a waste of your life. We wasted like 20-30 minutes waiting there, and our number was so far ahead and people were budging in line. It was chaos. Go flag a taxi across the street. Bangkok itself is always chaotic. It's like sensory overload all the time, but I think just because of the festivities, more people gathered. But nevertheless, we had a great time, ate some good food, and eventually made our way to a sky bar and got some drinks there. The next day, we wandered around Bangkok for a bit and eventually made our way to the Chatuchak weekend market. What I've learned about Bangkok is that there's a lot of crowds and it's always incredibly intense. So we decided to go back and check out another sky bar across town. After that, We were pretty exhausted, but we wanted to make the most of our last night in Bangkok, so we decided to get our shit together and check out Khao Sun Road, which is where the backpackers go to party apparently. And of course, once again, an incredibly hectic place. Pretty hectic day all day long, walking through crowds and stuff. That's one of the things about traveling, that your standard changes. Vancouver is a very busy place. A lot is always happening, but in comparison to Bangkok, it's not even the same. If you're into big crowds, Bangkok is definitely the place for you. However, for us, we were heading out the next morning to Chiang Mai. We arrived in Chiang Mai in the early afternoons, and after getting our dinner and massages, we took advantage that it was still the weekend and decided to go to another weekend market. I'll say it now, the Chiang Mai weekend market was probably my favorite experience at a night market this time around in Thailand. It was crowded, but there was something quaint about it. In fact, the whole city felt quaint. We stayed in the old town, which is surrounded by a wall. There's a lot of history around it, I'm sure, but I didn't take the time to pick up on any of it, but that's pretty cool. If Chiang Mai had more beaches, it would have been my favorite spot of the trip. Well, all weekend marketed out, the next day we set off to see elephants. You know what that means? A sketchy car ride through Thailand. We weren't worried at first until a lady from our tour group bailed when she saw the car. We were sitting in the back of a truck, but it wasn't like open top or anything. Anyways, we continued along until we arrived at unpaved roads, and that's when things got a little unnerving. We started winding down the mountain off the side of a cliff. Like literally, if the truck slipped a foot, we would tumble and die. We didn't though, and we got to see the elephants. Yay! And I'm not going to go into any of the ethics of elephant sanctuaries or riding elephants. That's not my battle. I'm just a tourist. Like many other tourists there. Because man, I was surprised by how many damn tourists were on the trip with us. I bet everybody who signed up for the trip didn't think that there were going to be so many people there, but there were a lot of people there. It was like 10 people to an elephant. Either way, it was a very fun day. Fun in the sun. Fun in the sun with some animals. The next day was the first day we didn't have anything planned. No flights, no excursions, so I decided to take a walk around the city while my wife worked. She's a freelancer. That night, however, we decided it's time we saw a ladyboy show. Why not? So we trekked out to another part of the city, and lo and behold, we ended up at another market, selling the same crap, because that was where the cabaret was located. So we did a loop or two of the vendors and the merchants, and waited until the show actually started. When it did, I must say, it was actually a lot of fun. It was awkward at times, but generally good entertainment. And that was it. That was our short stay in Chiang Mai. The next morning, very early in the morning, like 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m., we had to leave our hotel to head to the airport. Our next destination was Koh Phi Phi via Phuket. That means a flight, a taxi ride, and then a ferry ride. It was a long day, and we all got a little sunburnt sitting on the ferry. By the time we docked at Phi Phi, we were pretty exhausted. We were also a little frustrated when we realized that our hotel's taxi boat, which was supposed to be there waiting for us to take us to our resort, had left without us, so we had to wait another hour. I know. We were in paradise, we were staying at a resort, we shouldn't be complaining about having to wait another hour, but when it's 40-degree heat and you had to wake up early and you've been commuting all day and what you've been looking forward to is just getting cleaned up and like lying on a bed for a bit and not being in the sun, and you have all your luggage with you, it's just a recipe for bad mood. But we got through it. At last, we made it to our hotel, which is beachfront, except that there was a restaurant right in front of our room, an outdoor restaurant. The beach was technically still there. Once again, not complaining, just gratefully stating we were very lucky to be there. It was late afternoon, and we literally just crashed and took a nap. When we woke up, it was like 7 or 8 p.m. We could have easily called that day in Phi Phi a write-off, but I am so happy we got our shit together and made it into town. Aside from being one of the most beautiful sceneries in the world, Koh Phi Phi is great because there are no traffic. All there are these guys with large dollies passing by saying beep beep. I've been to Phi Phi 8 years ago and it has changed a shit ton. At least, this is not how I remembered it. It has become party central. We were thinking about going to a full moon party in Copenhagen, but after merely surviving that night in Phi Phi, we were like, nah. And that was when we accepted that we were now old. The next day is our full day in paradise, so we got the most out of the beach, i.e. more sunburnt. Then we went on a hike into town. We were staying in Long Beach, which is about a 30-minute hike to the pier. It was a much more quiet area to stay, and it kept us out doing stuff longer because at night we had to take the taxi boat home. We couldn't just go back to our hotel and take a nap, is what I'm saying. On our last day at Phi Phi, we booked a pirate boat cruise, which takes us to 4 different locations. The first location was Monkey Bay. So there are a few ways to get onto the bay. You could do a tour like ours, where we are in a big group with a guide, or you could do it privately. They specifically told us not to feed the monkeys. But this kid, not only was he feeding the monkeys, he was taunting them. Then the monkey bit him, and the parents got angry at the monkey. I don't know, that was my favorite moment on that bay. I don't particularly love that spot in the world, but monkeys, people love monkeys. At the end of the pirate boat trip, we arrived at Bamboo Island, which is one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been on. Like, legit white sands. I only wish for 2 things: that there was nobody else there, and that we could have spent the whole day there. Because 2 things suffer. Thailand has become such a popular travel destination over the year, and I think that might be one of its downfall. The ecosystem definitely suffers, and the tourist experience also suffers. More people means you lose that peacefulness, and more people naturally means that you're fucking up nature. We returned to our hotel that night and prepared for another early morning, this time out of Phi Phi. It was going to be a long, full-day journey from Koh Phi Phi to Koh Tao, on the other side of this thin country. We caught a taxi boat to a ferry to a shuttle to a charter bus to another ferry, and a ferry to a taxi that finally got us to our hotel. By the time we got into Koh Tao, we were once again pretty pooped. All we can do is grab some dinner and watch another fire show. The place we were staying at is actually pretty dope. That was what we discovered about Thailand. Accommodation is such a good value compared to what we would get if we were traveling to Hawaii or LA or even Mexico. Like, even getting a cheap hotel here in Vancouver, you could get a beachfront resort in Thailand. It's ridiculous. The suite we had an open outdoor kitchen, which, as awesome as it was also great for having our dear friends mosquitoes and stray dogs over to visit. Either way, last time I was traveling to Thailand, I was doing the whole backpacking thing. I was on a shoestring budget and I was staying at hostels. This time, I feel so lucky to not be staying at hostels. And yeah, it's just two very different styles of traveling, and I gotta say, I am more of a hotel kind of guy. I'm fancy like that, sue me. Now that I'm home, one thing that I'm going to miss the most about Thailand is being able to walk out of my bedroom and be on the beach in a matter of seconds. Koh Tao is a really nice surprise for me on this trip. And if there's one spot where I could just snap my finger and go back to for like a day or two, I think it would be that beach in Koh Tao. That night we decided to attend the Koh Tao pub crawl. I have done many self-initiated pub crawls, but only one other organized one, and that was hosted in Whistler. I find that pub crawls, like walking, is actually a terrific way to see a city while traveling. My favorite pub crawl / self-initiated city tour was in London. That was probably one of the best days of traveling I've ever had. Anyways, the Koh Tao pub crawl is one of the quote-unquote best in Asia, or the biggest, probably, I think they said best. Apparently what makes it the best is that it gets most people to the last spot, which there are 5. But here's the thing. The first stop is a place where we meet up. The second spot is a bar at the side of a pool, hardly a pub. Third is a ladyboy cabaret show, so we're actually watching a performance. Fourth, we return to the first bar for live music. That, I don't think that counts, but you can't just go back to the same bar you've been to. Plus, we stayed there for way too long. We were at that first / fourth bar for like an hour and a half. Either way, the last bar, which now everything is a bit of a blur because I drank all those buckets of alcohol, is like a rowdy beachside sports bar with fire dancing. And that was it. That was how our pub crawl ended. Nothing super eventful, we just had a pretty good time. Was it the best pub crawl I've ever been on? Nope, but it was still a lot of fun, and I certainly miss drinking out of buckets. The next day was our recovery day, a pure, relaxing day. No plans at all except to chill at the beach, maybe take a nap, and eat. This was also the day where I got some time to do some writing and reading, and at the end, we were able to see one of the most epic sunsets. The beach in Koh Tao conveniently faces west, so the sunset is literally center stage. By this point in the trip, I was getting ready to head home and return to my projects, but we had one stop left, and that was Koh Samui. Eventually, we needed to catch a flight back to Bangkok via Sarathani on the mainland, and Koh Samui would cut our travel day by 5 hours. So it was absolutely worth it when we're gonna be traveling for like 24 hours afterwards. And I'm glad we stopped at Koh Samui because Koh Samui didn't disappoint. Remember when I said that when it comes to accommodation, Thailand has one of the best values? After taking a ferry and taxi, we arrived at our 2-story suite with private pool and outdoor kitchen and bathtub. I'm fancy, so this was a really nice treat. Here, I'll give you a quick tour of the place. So the equivalent of staying in a 1-bed, second class, Vancouver hotel, we got this place with a private swimming pool. A private swimming pool. That was just too much. The unfortunate thing about Koh Samui while we stayed there was that it was a pretty deserted town. Considering the crowds we had to deal with in every other location, it was both pleasant and a little unsettling. What was up? Perhaps we weren't staying in the party central. We were staying in the Lamai beach area of the island where maybe there weren't as many nightclubs. I don't know. And the full moon party was happening at the same time on Koh Phi Phi, the island right beside Koh Samui. So maybe that island took some of the crowd with it. Nevertheless, Koh Samui and our really nice hotel was a delightful way to end a trip. It was bittersweet heading home, but I look forward to seeing my dog, waking up in my bed, and even returning to my work. But damn, I am going to miss those beaches, food, and cheap massages. It was a 24-hour journey home with a bit of time traveling involved as we crossed the international date line. The important thing about traveling, especially when you know you need to return to a regular life, is to get some new experiences while also getting some rest. That is my idea of filling the well. And every year I'm hoping to find time to do at least one big trip, kind of like this. A couple weeks where I get away from my projects, from social media, from everything I'm working on at home, and just fill up the well. If you're interested in seeing more, please like and subscribe to this channel. I appreciate it the most. Thank you so much for watching.